Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Untitled Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Wednesday, June 15th, middle of the month. Fed meeting is behind us. I will go through what the takeaways from that, but it's just kind of one of those things that we needed to get through. There's always oh, by the way, risk disclaimer in front of you. Make sure that you read the whole risk disclaimer here. Everything that we're talking about in this video is for information purposes only. But as expected, 75 basis points hike for today. That was fully priced into the market. What today was really about, the major information that the market wanted to hear is what is going to be the path of interest rate hikes going forward. And, again, I know this gets all this, and financial media, it gets all the attention. What are they going to do? Is it going to be 50, 70, 100? Fed fund futures are the way to tell what the market is pricing in, right? Believe it or not, the Fed doesn't want to surprise the market, right? They did leak the story to the Wall Street Journal earlier in the week that they were going to they shifted from 50 basis points to 75. As soon as that happened, Fed fund futures began to price that in. Right. And we talked about that in yesterday's video. So, you can try to guess for other purposes of drama, but I'm sorry to say it is what it is. And Fed fund futures are really accurate. The market prices it in. Right. So that said, what are we looking at in terms of the next meeting, which is the July 27th meeting, only about 6 weeks away. Right. So exactly what Powell said in the meeting. Right. He said they're either going to do 50 or 75, and they are probably going to be a little bit data dependent, right? And so what are we pricing in? Well, the market is pricing in 65 basis points. So, kind of in the middle of that. That's what the market is pricing in. And if there's an adjustment, right? If there's some other data points that come out, for instance, if another inflation report comes in worse than expected, you will probably see some change in tone. If next inflation report comes in, lighter and decently lighter than expectations, then maybe this moves down from a 65 down to, a 50 basis point hike for the next quarter. But they are still tightening regardless, right? So it's going to be tough sledding in my opinion, it's probably going to be tough sledding with these markets. This doesn't really change that much. From my standpoint, right, and I've been talking about this in the end of day videos, I think that you just have to have a little bit of a, you have to postpone immediate gratification, right? In terms of looking at more than a week, maybe more than a month. We're in the middle of June. It's still a very weak seasonal month, right? We've got options expiration. We've got quadruple witching on Friday. And, we'll see if that causes some more volatility, but it is what it is. It's not going to change. It's still a weak seasonal month. And, I think we need to get through this summer. I think we see a lot of chop. Maybe we don't see any major, I'm kind of leaning towards that we don't see as much volatility as what we've seen, but I wouldn't be surprised if we take out the lows and go a little bit lower either. So let's review the charts here. Again, this is Fed fund futures interest rate expectations, which have been updated. Let's talk a little bit about where we are. So one of the things that I've been saying, and I said this in yesterday's video, is that we were due for an oversold bounce, right? There was a lot of things that were lining up. There was a lot of things that were oversold, right? A lot of indicators that were flashing like, hey, this is pretty oversold. So even if you're super bearish, bullish, you still want to keep an eye on, if you're trading in the short term, like what some of these sentiment indicators are flashing, right? There will be short covering today. Well, let me go through the technicals and then we'll talk about the price action within groups. And I'll talk about some of the option flow that we saw today too, that gave a little bit of hints. But yes, we're below value. So, I thought that, possible we could bounce to here, which we did. We didn't close here. And that we could maybe even bounce up to here, but I'm not putting any major, there's no reason for me to kind of stick my neck out and say, oh, I'm playing for this move up to here, right? The trend is paramount here, which is down. All right. Also note, right, the last time that we had one of these Fed meetings, this was the price action that day. Look at what ensued the next day, right? So, I learned my lesson last Fed meeting with that. We saw such a nice move. Now, again, we ran into resistance last Fed meeting. Interesting that we're kind of like at the same point in terms of, or almost at the same point. We broke through, this was the bottom of the value area for the month of May. And we also broke through the value area for the month of June. And you've got a little bit of retest, but there, there's no way I'm adding a lot of risk into one day. And again, it was said in the trading room today, which kind of stole my thunder a little bit, because I say this all the time, but one day is not a trend, right? So we'll kind of watch. We have this S1 Venom, right, which is an extension away from the value area. So there's a little bit of support there, but this is not major support. I wouldn't be surprised if we go down to 3553, right? Or even, possibly down to here or even here. All right. But I'm not making any predictions. I just know that the trend is down, right? And I follow price trend more than anything else. And that is telling me not to put on a lot of risk here. It is telling me to be patient and wait for more setups, right? So the funny thing about, when we're looking at the indices, right, it's good to know what the overall picture is. But if you're doing the almost everyday exercise that I do, which is scanning through charts, right, you're going to notice when things start to look a bit better, and you'll start to see signals, right? That's part of my job at Tribeca Trade Group is to spot those for members and keep a very close eye on different groups and find the relative strength in the market, right? We've been talking about the Chinese internet names. I don't think a lot of people have been onto that, right? We've made some money playing some of those areas of the market that have been showing that relative strength. Okay, so that's what I see for now. We're kind of, it looks messy, right? And a lot of charts look messy. We could go through the NASDAQ. I'll give you just very quickly. We don't need to go through every single detail here, but weekly chart, we're below value. Could we get a hammer bar here and start to reverse back up? We could, it's possible, right? I would watch this 11,684, right? That's the bottom of value that needs to be retaken. Could happen tomorrow. Anything's possible. 285.80. So 285.85 is the level for the Qs. That's a great level to watch for tomorrow. If we get back inside here, maybe we can kind of hang back inside the value area for a little bit, and we might find some more setups as we go along, right? IWM also, interesting to me, right? That IWM really did not break decently through those lows of May. There are some names that did not break the May lows, which I find pretty interesting, right? And I think from a sector standpoint, which still looks like a mess, right? But interesting that biotech was one of those groups, right? Did go down, no doubt, but it didn't take out the lows, right? So those are things that I would be watching, some of these groups that are kind of hanging in there. All right, a couple other points that I wanted to make. Let's look at bonds, right? We know that bonds had a really nice, I don't know what the story was at the end of the day. Somebody did some bond buying here at the end of the day, really kind of picked up into the close, and you could see that with the volume in TLT as well today. So this is also oversold bounce, right? We knew that this was coming. Sorry, I don't want to say that we know, because you never know, right? It's all about probabilities, right? But the probabilities were kind of stacked that we were going to get not only a bounce in equities, but a bounce in bonds. And ZB was up 1.8% today. That's a nice move back, right? That's also bullish engulfing from the previous day. Did it take back any of the trends here? Nope. It's not even above the 5-period moving average. So again, this didn't change the trend, but at least we're kind of have a little bit of a relief bounce, right? When bonds really start to go down quickly to the downside, it's usually not good for equities. Same thing with the US dollar. Right, let's see where that closed today. It did close down today. Some of these things were all over the place. And that's a great point to make as well, is that I go over this every single Fed meeting. right? The first announcement isn't always the direction that we go in, right? We actually started to really lean to the downside. We took out the day's lows right before the press conference started. Press conference started, and the market kind of reversed and went the other direction. So it's a lot of whipsaw on these Fed days. And again, the main thing is not to get fooled, right? People see the market starting to move during, at 2 o'clock, and it can completely change directions by the time Powell starts speaking at 2:30. Right. So please don't get fooled by that. It happens almost every Fed meeting. All right. Yeah. So a couple of things that I thought were interesting today. When we, I do use option flow, because sometimes option flow can give us some interesting clues. So we started to see, like, now I know Snowflake got an upgrade today, but notice. So I want you to notice a couple things with these trades, right? Notice the duration, right? The maturity. Notice the size, right? This is a pretty decent sized trade, right? What do you see with the time frame? This week, next week, they're really short-term stuff, right? So someone also was looking for a decent bounce. Here's another one that was a little bit further out, right? This went to July, but still pretty short term, right? Not putting on a huge trade, for longer term distance, right? The next one that we saw, this happened again pre-FOMC, was the trade desk, right? Look at how, right? Is this a long-term trade? June 24th, right? So someone was basically, I mean, again, this is a big size trade. It's $487,000 of premium, right? That's no joke. That's a decent size, small, short-term bet, right? So it's June 24th, 47 calls. If you look at these charts, they almost, they look all so similar, right? So here's what TDD looks like. Again, this is some type of wedge pattern. It's in a downtrend, right? Snowflake, the chart looked hideous coming into today. So again, up 7.6% today. If you manage to get this in for a day trade, awesome, right? But I don't see a trend change. Someone's just betting very short term, right? And then the third one that caught my eye was this data dog, right? We went over this in the trading room today, and I'll show you that in just a second. But look at this size trade, right? Data dog, 514,000 of premium. Again, a very hefty opening bullish trade, but look where they're going, right? Just not even 2 weeks out. It's a week and a half out. So this, like, that tells you, like, hey, someone's just looking for a quick hit. And that's data dog, which is also holding. But again, you can't like bank on that in terms of, hey, it's going to flip the trend, right? But so in any event, I mentioned these and I said, hey, that's some decent size. So again, it can kind of give you a hint of how some of these institutions are positioning a little bit, because that's not retail. $500,000 is some institution giving a shot, right, at an oversold bounce coming, right? So again, this name was up. Datadog was only up 2.6%. So maybe that's a name to watch for tomorrow. Again, but very short-term stuff. Like if I were to trade this tomorrow, right, this would be a day trade, right? And I would be looking for either 93 or 97, right, for a little bit of follow through, right? There's also some Amazon call buying. I came in long Amazon today, so Amazon up 5% worked for me. I'll show you the trade blotter in just a second. All right, here's my trade blotter again. I'm the only one that I know of that shows like what their trades are. Gives you my P&L I give the P&L at the end of the month, right? Because it could be noisy during the month. But I do this every one of these videos. I wish more people would be transparent like I am, but I'll tell you, I try to be upfront, transparent with everybody with exactly what I'm doing. Not every trade was a winner. I got stopped out on an MDB trade. I thought that had a chance to get going. Just there's a little bit of volatility that was in after the first half hour of the day. Got myself stopped out in that position. But yes, here's my Amazon that I put on. Was this yesterday? in some of these Amazon. They said this will be an FOMC trade, right? So I took this off. Just $3. Paid $2, and I actually I didn't put it in the regular trade blotter because I knew I wasn't going to be in for long. But I also day traded some Amazon stock today too, which also ended up being a little winner for me today. But so where is this setting up now? Well, again, what's the trend here? The trend's down. So I'm not risking a lot here, but I've got support to trade against. So I'm just looking for, a quick move, maybe up to 112. Right. And then even if it happens to kind of carry a little bit further, maybe up to 116, just retracing some of this move. But that's all I'm looking for in this trade. And I know exactly where my stop is, right? Right. Which is right around my stop's going to be, I think I said 104, but maybe 103 might be a little bit better to use. This way gives myself a little bit of tolerance here versus the bottom of value. And that's it. Just a trade. All right, a couple other names that I thought were of interest today, just to kind of give you some perspective. I've been watching this grocery outlet, nice little volume here. And, I'm watching, I don't have a position on this one. I'm watching for tomorrow. I started a position in this one last week and I took it off just because with the overall volatility. This is Photronics. You had nice earnings, nice move, right? Good volume on this move. Look at the volume decrease as it settles in. Right, and found support right where it should have at the 20-day moving average. So I think this will be an interesting one to watch too, showing some relative strength. All right, we've talked about a couple of these things. I have another name written down, but I can't read it. I'm still watching the Chinese internet names, right, which is PDD. The Chinese internet names were quiet today. That's fine. Let them be quiet for a day. And I'm watching to see if this can take out the 200-day moving average, right? Again, they seemed very quiet today. There wasn't really much going on too much within this group. Again, had a nice day, up 1.7%, right? So nice bounce off of where it needed to hold, which was that 20-day moving average. It didn't make it down to the top of value, which I think is even a little bit stronger. NEO is interesting today. That was up 7% today. If you look at the value area for the day, it did make it through, right? Because I think we were looking at this name earlier today, found support at 1836, made it through the value area. So yeah, you could look at this name for tomorrow and trade this versus 1982. Again, this market always it's important to have a stop have a stop price in mind before you enter the trade, but especially in this whippy market that we're dealing with. All right, one other area that we saw call buying today was HYG. All right, that's the high yield ETF, really beaten up. This bounced today too, up 2%, right, and actually did better than what overall bonds did today, right? So there was some tightening, right, in terms of credit spreads, which is good. Right, that's also kind of indicating risk off. A couple other things that I thought were interesting too, right? The ARK ETF, which again, I don't own this. I'm not going to own it because I don't like the components in there. But this had a big move today, which kind of tells me, hey, this is probably a little bit more short covering. Interesting, this too didn't take. Again, I'm not going into this name. I'm just watching this for an indicator. But this also held the May lows. All right, so just kind of making some observations as we go along here, and that's basically it, guys. I think that any of these FOMC days, they're tricky, right? They're whippy, they're all over the place, right? What I would be looking for is some type of follow through for tomorrow, but not much has changed, right? They're going to be raising interest rates. The data that came out today, retail sales was a little bit weak, right? Right now, bad news is good news because, slower economic activity should, in theory, bring down inflation. The further you bring down inflation, the less interest rate and less tightening that there may be. And that might help the overall equity market. All right, guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow.